Hello, silly people, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Trey, and today we will be continuing with week 12 of the 100-day march, which is a challenge for myself to try to make a comic 24 pages within the span of 100 days, or thereabouts. I have a feeling it's going to be longer, but welcome to the welcome back. Today we'll be covering inking of pages 1 and 2 and including some key images. So normally I do my inking in 3 phases. 1, starting with the outlines, doing broad brushstrokes, and then I leave it for a day to let it dry. Day 2, I go back in with detailing, whether with a brush or a pen, but mostly with a pen. And then day 3 is the finer details and the finishing up. So let's run down these phases in more detail. So the example for today will be pages 1 and 2 plus some key images. Key images stand out in that they come out of the border or breaking the border, sitting on top of the border, because they have more emphasis to get more of an idea of what the character is like. And it's also, I think, pretty cool. So I do that on the side with another sheet of Bristol paper I've cut into 4ths from a larger sheet to work on these key images. But I think next time I might try doing the key images after I do the major page inking. But we'll see how that goes. So here we have the example of page 1, where I have my brush, my inks, my paper on the side that I use to wipe off the excess ink off the brush and to keep the tip pointy. And I just go in and the major parts. I'm the most shaky, the most frightened, nervous, scared, and all of that in the beginning. So I try to get that energy out first with the large areas of the first page. Sometimes I'll do the first page last when I'm a little bit more stable, more confident, and it just flows better. But I thought, give it a go for the first page. Just go for it. So that's what I'm doing here. I go through this exact same process for page 2, doing the major bits, mostly the outline, trying to get the whole page done in a day. The day is my benchmark. If I can get a page a day, I feel I have done pretty well. Although with caveats, because it depends on what is on said page. If you have a lot of characters, a lot of action, speed lines, a battle scene, those seem to take a bit more time, but it depends on the actions being taken. While some pages have fewer panels and you can go through them fairly quickly. Another thing to note about comics is that it is many illustrations on one page. It is not a single illustrated image that can be worked on for hours or days, even weeks sometimes. This has to be done for every image tells a little story. And because of that, you have to keep moving. Some days I don't have it, but you still got to get it done. And sometimes I'm not always the greatest on every, individual single image, but overall is what counts. And sometimes, like in this image here, I think I got it pretty well. And so I take my joy in the small wins while also trying to keep things moving. Now for key images that pop out from the page or I want to give a little bit more emphasis on, I usually do these separately, but I'm also doing them on the page. And then I'll figure out which one I like better and I'll go with that image. The two examples are Beautiful Beast Kiss on page 2 at the bottom, where she is announcing her presence emphatically. The second key image is Bunny, shown here, and her role in all of this. They're very similar types. They are fun-loving, easygoing people, but this is their first meeting. And so I wanted Bunny, who is the new character, to have more of a focus, to be bigger and larger, since she is the one sort of interrogating our hero in Beautiful Beast Kiss. And so I wanted to make her stand out, fully formed on this page as a standout for her introduction, but also, to introduce the character to the audience. Now, I break my pages up into doing it over a number of days, usually about 3. I feel it gives me the most time to think about what I'm doing. So I do the broad strokes on day 1, doing the whole page, mostly the outlines. Second day, I let it dry, come back, and then I do the details. That's eyes, clothing folds, and anything else I can think of. And then I set that aside for another day, for day 3, where I take the final look at it, touch up some areas that I will always forget, especially tails and wings for Beautiful Beast Kiss, eye details, and then sometimes I do cleanup on that 3rd day as well. By day 3 in the process, it's mostly detailing and cleanup, and the page should look pretty good to me. But over the course of looking at it days after, I'll always find mistakes, and that's okay. You just have to keep moving. You will always look at a piece of your art days later and go, I could have touched that up, or I could have done such and such better. But that you just got to keep moving. Just keep moving. And I usually focus on the keyframes and cleanup as the final bits. Part of the idea for my cleanup phase is using a whiteout. I have this Presto whiteout. And what I like about this is that it sits on top, and then I use an X-Acto knife to scrape out once it dries. And so I can sculpt it the way I want. So it's really good for eye highlights and also for, covering large areas, because there will always be things that I forget or need to include, and yeah. So this is a whole phase that I usually do on day 3. All right, so let's take a look at our keyframes and go over why I do them. Because I like to keep one on the page and then one separate, the enlarged keyframe version. That's so I can have more detail, more nuance, and I could also lay that on top of the final image so that it looks like it's popping out of the borders of the comics. So I have the two on page 2, the Beautiful Beast Kiss, the smaller version on the page, and the larger version keyframe. Also Bunny. Both look good. I'm not sure exactly which one I'm going to take. And on page 1, where she's bursting out of the page triumphantly, declaring that she has made it to another dimension. So now let's take a look at the overall pages, and before we wrap this thing up. So I have my main inks. Again, the whole process is the overall done in about a day. Day 2, I go back in, do the eyes and tails and anything hopefully I didn't forget, but I usually do. Day 3 is more tightening up, details, and some cleanup. And that is the whole process for making my pages. Now I must note that I do the background separately. Usually I do the backgrounds on computer if I'm not going to paint them traditionally. But for this comic, I think I want to have pastel as the main artistic style for this chapter. I think it kind of fits. We'll see in the coloring process, but that's my idea for now. So these are just the characters devoid of backgrounds, and then we'll do the backgrounds after we do the paneling and all that. So it's like an assembly line. I do one thing before I do another, and so on and so forth. So that wraps up week 12, pages 1 and 2, with some keyframes. Next week will be week 13, where we will go over pages 6 and 8. What is that? Demon Cat and Birdie specific pages with the keyframes. So now let's run down the process from start to finish, what we have so far for pages 1 and 2. So page 1, we start with a very, very simple thumbnail sketch version. It's just the briefest of information. I've got some text. And from that, we go to the rough sketch version, more fleshed out, still using the written text, but everything is here. And after that, we add the frames to get a better idea of what it will look like in the actual comic form, the typed out text, and we've improved the drawings. And then we go to the inks. Once it's all scanned, we'll put it into Clip Studio Paint, redo the framing, the text speech balloons and all that. And we have the makings of a final piece of comic page. So now let's look at page number 2. Again, we start off with the thumbnail sketch, very briefest of information there. I like this little drawing of, but it has all the elements. After that, the rough sketch version, more fleshed out, still using the written text, but everything's there. And then after that, we add in the frames, flesh out the characters a bit more, get them all into place. And that is the sketch version. And now we have the inks. And that is the whole process from start to finish. Start to finish. And now all we need is the colors. Well, colors, framing, text, but we have the spine of everything. And there we go. And next week we'll do pages 6 and 8. So, thank you for joining me. I have been Trey Hodges. You can find my work at treyhodges.com. Take care, keep shining, and power to all of the creators. See you next week.